Blender for Noobs.
Hello, this is Dan Nobles and welcome to Blender for Noobs and welcome back to our character creation series and welcome to part 8 where we're going to be adding some hair to the character that we have already created. As you can see from our final render before, he has the texture that came with the skin. You know, it's got some hair on there, but we're going to give him some more hair. So if you used the hair from Make Human, you won't be doing the hair in Blender. But if you left him kind of bald like I did, then you can do the hair part. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Just select this here. Wow, how did I get zoomed so far out? Okay. By the way, if you ever you were working with something out here or something over to the side, and you go to look at the object you want to work on and you try to rotate and it's like going crazy like this, rotating all over the place, just select the object you want to work with and hit dot on your numpad. Basically what that does, if you go down to view and align view and view selected, you are doing the exact same thing. And then when you rotate, you can see that it is rotating and moving around just fine. Okay. So just another quick tip there for you. All right, so we want to give this guy some hair. What is getting in my way here? It's this background. It's driving me nuts. So I'm going to select this background and I'm going to move it back to my end layer over there. All right, so hair. Let's do a control up arrow. Get back here. Okay, so for hair, what you do is you use particles over on your property shelf. So if I hold down my middle mouse button and drag this over here, you will see this properties window. So this is what we're going to be using. But before we even do that, man, there's so much junk in the way here. I'm going to shift select this stuff, move it to this layer here. Okay, so before we do that, we need to set up our human to tell Blender where his hair should be. Otherwise, it's going to be all over his body and it's going to look like an orangutan. So I'm going to select the person here. And while in object mode, I'm going to tab into edit mode. And you can do this either by selecting your vertex select or your face. I usually do faces. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a vertex group that tells Blender where the hair is going to be. So the best way to do this, turn off occlude so that when you select something, it's going to select also the face on the other side of the head. Like if I select those, it's going to select those behind it. Okay, choose 3 on your numpad, control up arrow so you can see what you're doing, and just zoom in to where you can see his scalp. And then kind of picture where hair would grow out of on the scalp. And then I'm going to choose C on my keyboard, use the C tool, and I'm just going to select where I think his hair might grow out of his scalp. So just going to select all this area right here. And you can picture if you wanted to make like, you know, give your character a mohawk or something, I guess you could just select along the middle of his head. Something like that. But that is where I picture his hair is going to be. You don't have to be super precise for this. You just want to make sure that, you know, you get it kind of where it should be. Okay. So while that is selected, I'm going to control up arrow and I'm going to go to my vertex or my object data here to get to my vertex groups. Now notice you already have a bunch of vertex groups. These are all the vertex groups that were created for your human to, you know, move your bones and all that stuff. It needs all that stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new vertex group. So I'm going to choose plus, and I'm just going to click on there, double click, and I'm going to call this hair. This is my hair vertex group. It's not going to be associated with this until you assign it. So in order to test this, all you need to do is make sure you're selected on hair deselect and then select, and you see that, okay, now it is assigned to there. Okay, so we have a vertex group that is specifically for where our hair is going to be. Okay, so tab back into object mode. We're ready to work with hair. So go over to your particle settings and do the plus to create a new particle group or a new particle system. And instead of being an emitter type, this is going to click on that and we're going to use hair. Now, notice right now there is hair coming out of all parts of his body. He's just one hairy dude. Okay, so we don't want that. But by the way, if you want to, you can rename your particle system to hair. Or, you know, if you're going to have more than one particle system, then that's a way to keep track of it. All right, so how do we get it to just get on, you know, around his head where we want it to be? Well, remember we created a vertex group. We scroll down here in our particle settings, you will see vertex groups. And you will see all these different things that have to do with vertex groups. And I usually use just, you know, you can use the density here and click on there and it'll show all your vertex group. If you start typing hair, it'll come up with your hair and you can do that. And once you do that, guess what? His hair is only coming out of those vertices that we selected that one time. Okay, so his hair is still like a little bit long, maybe. So if you don't want him to be like in some kind of bizarre, I don't know, show on Broadway, I have no idea. You want shorter hair. So scroll back up, go to the hair length right here, and we are going to just slide that down and you'll see the hair just getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until it gets very, very short. And we can kind of scroll in here. Let's move this over so we can see. And I'm just going to go down even further, not that far. Right about there. Okay, so that's pretty short hair. But what I suggest that you do is, even if you are making somebody with long hair, say if you have a woman character and you're making long hair, make it short first, and then use your tools to add hair. And I'll show you how to add length, you know, the length of the hair, because the reason for that is because just because of experience. And I'll tell you why. When you're working with hair, it can be kind of a bear to work with. It's a bear to work with hair if you have long hair. But if you start out with short hair and you get it styled the way you want it and then add the hair, it is so much easier. So start out with short hair. Just remember that. Okay, the number of particles. I think I just leave this default at 1,000. That's plenty enough. Let me Control S save this guy. Okay, and I'm going to show you just the basic settings to get going with the hair. You don't have to do a lot in the beginning. I know there's a lot here to worry about, but you can look up what all these things do. You can look at different tutorials to see what other people have done, but I'm going to show you my basic procedure for working with hair. You know, the easiest way I've found to do it. So we've got the hair length, and we've got the vertex group. So we want to scroll down here and we want to go to children. And instead of none, we're going to make interpolated. Okay, when you do that, look at there. So what it's doing is it's actually taking your each follicle of the hair that you have there, and it's adding like children hair next to it to give it some bulk in the hair, I guess you'd call it. So you have these settings over here, very important. This has a lot to do with how fast your hair is rendering. The display, of course, is what you were seeing here. If you do 100, you can see that is the hair that is actually going to render. But to work with it, it might be a lot easier just to leave it at 10 for now anyway. The render, it does not need to be that thick usually. You can try something like 50 or 60. Let me go ahead and do 60 just to, it's going to be something like that. You can kind of see the coverage that you're getting. And let's go back. I'm just going to display maybe 20, make it a little bit easier. The reason that you bump down the display is if your computer is slow or whatever, it's a lot easier to work with a hair if the display is lower. Okay, and I might even, let's see the length. I think the length's okay. We'll leave it at 0.20. Okay, so we have this set up. Not going to do anything with this clumping or anything like this. You can play around with this later, but I'm going to come down here. And these are kind of neat too, the different kinks of the hair. I did this with that one character that you saw where I was showing you the uniform. I changed her hair to something like radial or wave or something, and it turned out really cool. So just come down here to where you see cycles, hair rendering. You definitely want to change these settings. So you're looking under, not rendering, I'm sorry, but the cycles hair settings. We're going to change the root to 0.005. And what this has to do with when it renders, the root makes the root really, really small. So it looks more like hair instead of like shag carpet rugging or something like that. And then close tip closes the actual tip of the hair. Usually not a big deal. I mean, if you're dealing with something this small, you won't see it usually, but you can just leave that as default. Okay, so right now, you will notice that we can still change the length of the hair. Once we go in and we start combing the hair, you will no longer have the ability to change this. So make sure that the length that you want is set right there. I mean, you can always add and cut with the tools that we're going to have, but this will be grayed out later. In fact, I'll probably show you right now. Do a quick save, Control S, and come down here to your settings here and go to Particle Edit. So once you do that, see what happened over here. You can no longer change the number of follicles or the hair. So if you wanted to change that, then what you'll have to do is come up here and delete your particles and create it all over again. I don't think there's any other way to do it. Anyway, so if you make sure you got your right size hair and all that stuff to begin with, then you should be okay. Now, we are going to start styling this guy, combing his hair, making him look cool. So if you choose T to get to your tools and scroll up here, go to tools here. You will see the tools for your hair. Right now it's on none. I'm going to choose comb. That'll give me a comb and I can comb his hair. But before I do that, if you come down here, scroll down here, click on children, and that will show you kind of the overall, what his hair is looking like. That's very helpful to me. If I just see, these follicles, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But children, see what his hair is actually looking like, works very well. If your computer, for whatever reason, if it's slow or whatever, can't handle it, then you can uncheck that. But if you can, just leave it checked. Also, you want to come down to the bottom and you want to turn occlude off, and that way it's much easier to work with. So I'm going to Control up arrow, make it even easier to work with by seeing the whole picture here. And now you can start like combing his hair. So with this comb, by default mine's at 50 pixels. You can change the radius of your comb. Just be aware that you can do that. So I'm just going to hold down my select button and I'm going to comb his hair. Isn't that cool? It's just so awesome. Now he looks like a skunk. And you can go to the front view and you can start like, combing there. And he's like, oh man, I am so cool. I am so awesome. Oh, look at my hair. Okay, and just comb it down there. Oh yeah, he's really cool now. All right, so just kind of comb it back and, you know, just kind of mess around with it, the look of it. Especially, you know, when you look at it and you see like these pieces sticking up, it doesn't look much here, but when you render it, it will just completely ruin your render. When you see things sticking out like that, that just looks kind of out of place, it will absolutely ruin your render. Hair's kind of weird that way. It just, it doesn't look exactly like it does when you comb it. So it's kind of a learning process. The more you work with combing hair, the more you'll realize how it works. So what you want to do is you want to kind of look at it at all angles and make sure it's nice and combed, you know, so it looks cool. Not, you don't want things sticking out like this. Unless, you know, that's what you're going for, you know, maybe you want his character to kind of look kind of weird. I can guarantee you, because I'm doing this very quickly, it's going to probably look pretty stupid, but at least it'll give you kind of an idea of, you know, how to make this hair. It kind of went too far in there with his hair. See how it's sticking out like right there. And that's why you know, that's why you move in at different angles and look at what it's looking like, because you will see these pieces that are just doing weird things, and then you can fix them. See that kind of sticking up there? You wouldn't think that it's a big deal, but believe me, when you render that, it'll be wigging out so much you'll be like, what the heck is it doing? Okay, so you can kind of see how his hair is kind of straight. I mean, probably not the best hair job I've ever done, but anyway, you get the idea. Now, okay, so now if you were making a character, like I said before, with long hair, you want to start out with short hair, all you need to do is choose the length button. The add button, what it does is it actually adds more hair follicles. And if you got enough hair already, you don't want to do that. So we're going to do the length. Come down here and say, oh, I need him to have more hair. So you can just, it's basically what you're doing is you're growing his hair here. So if you're doing it like a female character, or, you know, the dude has a ponytail or whatever, then that is one way you can, you know, grow his hair. And then you can, if you don't want that, go to cut and come in here and just start cutting it back. So that's the way that you can manipulate the hair without having to worry about going back and redoing your particle settings. Okay. And then it's kind of wigged out, so get the comb, you know, make him nice and combed and groomed so he looks cool. Yes, I look cool now. Get to the chopper. Sorry, a little bit of Arnold coming out there. So that's what he looks like. Pretty cool, huh? Smooth, I don't really use that too much. You can play around with that. Puff, I never really use that. Cut, you just seen me use that. And weight has to do with the weight settings of the hair. That has to do with if your character's running, you can actually make the hair kind of bounce up and down, I believe. I've never done that, but that's what I believe that setting is for. Other than that, you might use the X mirror to, if you want one side of the head same as the other, or one side of the hair same as the other. I don't usually use that because that's not usually the case. But those are the main options there in the hair. So then what you do is you go back to your object mode, control up arrow, get back to our character here. And by default, if we look at our particle settings, we want to look at, under the render settings, the material that it's using. Right now it is using, what did I do? tutorial test guide, middle-aged Caucasian male. So what it's doing is it's actually by default just using that material that is for the skin. This actually turned out perfect for a red-headed woman that I was doing. It just worked. So I left it that way. But for this guy, unless you want him to be a redhead or whatever, it's not going to work. So I'm going to do a Control S save. But let's go ahead and see, Control Z, what this guy is looking like. Okay. So you can kind of see his hair there, but because it is the rendered view, you're not going to see too much here. So let's do a quick render so you can see what he looks like. I'm not going to do that 1000 setting because it'll take forever. Let's do 300 just so you can get an idea of what he looks like. And I'll just choose Shift B. Oops, where's my camera? I'm missing everything because I moved it. Okay, Control 0 gives me my active camera. Let me move this back a little bit. G, Z, Z. Okay, and Shift B, and I'm going to just select that. What that does is it gives you, it causes your camera to only render where you selected there, which is very nice if you're testing something. Say I wanted to just see if his eyes is working okay, how they look. I can do that. In this case, I just want to get like an overall view of his head and not all this background stuff. So it'll take, just shortens the render time. So Control S, quick save, and F12. I'm going to render away. Okay, so there he is. Not very impressive on the hair right now because, like I said, it's using that default skin texture to get the different variations of color. But this is good so that you will see what it's doing here. See how you got some hair just kind of sticking out there? Well, that is this stuff right here. And you wouldn't think it would matter, but that is the way it works. So let's fix that real quick. Select him, go to Particle Edit, and let's go back in here. And let's turn that stuff off again. All right, so you can kind of, fix that, comb it down or crossed or, whatever you need to do to get that to work right. See, there's stuff here. So that is the kind of things that will kind of drive you crazy when you're making hair. It doesn't seem like it would cause problems, but it does just because of the way it has to work. So, that'll give you some practice with using your comb and finding out how that kind of stuff works. So you can't render, you can try to render, but while you're in particle edit, it will not show the hair. So you want to go back to object mode. And in this case, I'm just going to do a Shift B, get that one little piece right there, turn on my stuff here and render really quick. Okay, so you can see we kind of fixed that piece. But what we really need to do is we really need to fix his texture. So I'm going to show you how to fix the texture of the hair. So how do you do it? What do? You go to Google and you type in hair. And I'm going to go to images. And wow, we got all kinds of hair. But I just need hair. I don't need the people. So let's see. Let's go brown hair. This is really strange. I don't usually get a bunch of people. I get actual hair images. Light brown. Wow. A bunch of light brown haired women. This is amazing. Probably what I need to do is go brown hair texture. There we go. So what I'm going to recommend that you do is just look at the texture of hair that you can find. And what you're looking at, you're not looking so much at the texture of the hair. What you're looking at is the color variation. So if you find something that looks like the color variation that you want, that is what you want to use. Keep in mind, if you see shiny hair like this, it's not going to make your hair shiny. What it's going to do is it's going to have a color variation of lighter color in it. So just keep that in mind. In my case, I just want to find something that kind of looks like brown hair. Good grief. I don't know. This looks kind of reddish to me, but we'll go ahead and try this because it's kind of light also. So I'm going to choose this. I'm just going to save image as. And just to make it easier, I'm going to put it in the textures area that has all my other textures for the person, the make human. So I'm going to save it in there. Keep in mind, if you do this and you're making your own character, don't just grab somebody's image off the internet like I'm doing. If you're actually going to use it in some kind of production manner, make sure you have the rights to it, of course. I mean, just common sense. Okay, so I have that, and I'm going to go over to my materials. And right here where it's, I have this skin texture, I'm just going to do plus, and I'm going to choose new, and I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to call this hair. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to the skin texture. I'm going to select everything, Control C, copy, go to my hair, delete what is by default there, those nodes, and Control V, paste. And right now it's just using that same texture, but I'm going to come in here, zoom in here, and open, and go find that hair that I just placed there. Grab that, and you'll see that texture. Okay, now we're not done yet. What we need to do is go back to our particles, come down to where it's using the material, and select that, and then you will see your hair there. You can select that. All right, so let's do another test render to see what he's looking like now. So there's our hair so far. Still, I'm not very impressed with his hair. And as I think about it, it probably has a lot to do with the lighting that I don't have set up. So Control up arrow. Another thing that we can look at here is if we scroll down here, kind of get a view of his head here. You can kind of play around with these settings like clumping and things like that. I'm going to change it to, something like, let's see, what would work good for him. Yeah, wave might be interesting. So click on wave and then just bump down the amplitude. Something like that. And also his hair didn't look very thick to me. So what you can also do there is you can bump this up. I'm going to make it like 80. That may be a little bit too much. Just be careful with this because this will affect your render time greatly. So Control S, click save, and let's do another F12 render, see what we come up with. All right, so there you have it, Crewman Jones and his funky hairdo here. But you can kind of see how the variation of the color is working now with his hair, and you can kind of play around. You can easily make your own hair texture. It doesn't have to actually be a picture of hair. It can be like a gradient picture that just has a variation of the color of hair you want. So say if like you're making a blonde-headed character, you could have like, variations of yellow that you've created yourself. So to take this forward with creating a more realistic character, what you would want to do is you would want to work with the material and create like, give it the correct settings. If we go back here, Control up arrow, what you're doing is you're working with this texture and you want to create nodes which would give that some, some transparency, some glossiness. There are tutorials out there for that. It's kind of beyond the scope of this tutorial. It would make it much, much more longer. But yeah, there is more things that you can do with the hair to make it even better looking. But that is a very quick way to get your hair going. And then, like I said, you can do so much more with it. But that is always the basic starting point that I use to make my characters. And in fact, many of my characters, I don't even go any further than this because it is enough for what I'm actually doing with my characters. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial. In the next part of this character creation series, part 9, what I'm going to be showing you is working with the actual texture of the character in order to further enhance your character. Next part of the tutorial, working with the textures, and I'll see you in the next video.